So two things happened. We had the awareness, because all these things are simultaneously going on. We have an awareness about the pollution coming from the incinerator. We got a report, so you get the communities agitated, mobilizing about that. We have the struggle for affordable housing space and the right for people to, to be treated fairly under the law and to create a diverse space where we would have a decent, place to live. And then you want to enjoy that space and make sure your children had recreation. So we had to simultaneously engage that. So right about this time, a study comes out called "The Toxic Waste and Race." It came out in '87, but it hit like a bomb. And this is where it's linking the fact that polluting facilities, environmental facilities, are being located and sited in urban communities. And regardless of your socioeconomic status, they went back in time and found even these old black communities were built on top of landfills like in Jacksonville, Florida. So it took an incident down in North Carolina where there was a PCB dump that was being built in a town in North Carolina. And the residents and the church rose up to take a direct action, because the action again comes out of the church being a central place of organizing, something that I could definitely relate to. And the church has always been that second city hall, whether it was for my family or any other community. It's that place where people can come together and take action. And so, in short, this knowledge was hitting. We then had to study this knowledge about the Answers incinerator hitting.
Wait. Just to piece this out, because this is important stuff. This is foundational work for you. So the 1987 is when this Toxic Races and Spaces report.
Yes, it hits out. It comes out like an atomic bomb.
And this is the first national scale.
This is the first systematic analysis of how governments at all levels, from the federal all the way down to the local, handles hazardous waste, solid waste, polluting facilities, sewage treatment plants, all these things, whether we call them negative amenities, things that are essential for cities, how they deal and manage their waste, how they deal and manage their sewage. These things, in the process of dealing with these things, they produce a lot of toxins and toxic byproducts. They produce a lot of odors. But more importantly, the dust and particulates can not only trigger asthma, in some cases, depending upon the composition, can be carcinogenic. So you would assume this study, when it did that analysis, because first it was argued that in North Carolina that they were being, which led to a study called Dumping in Dixie by Dr. Robert Bullitt, that this was happening because they were black. And so this study went out to find out whether that assertion was true. It was the first systematic analysis. So based upon an alert, based upon an inaction in North Carolina, an alarm went up. United Church of Christ stepped in. United Church of Christ out of Harlem, New York. So New York City once again comes through. Dr. Benjamin Chavis, Charles Lee, and a woman who actually grew up across the street from where I would go as a child, and what we call the Bad Air Fund, over at the Delano Project. Vernice Miller Travis, they were part of the pioneering effort under the United Church of Christ, supported by the United Church of Christ, that did the analysis that showed that these conditions of the grimy, dirty urban community was actually a function of actual land use policy linked to our governments, linked to our faulty or failing democracy, or democracies that did not treat people of color equally under the law, hence creating injustices, in this case environmental justice. And since it's codified and classified by race, it falls along the fault lines of race. Ben Chavis properly called it environmental racism. Me being a systems thinker, this is, again, like I said, how my mind was exploded when I was sitting at, how all that consciousness came together in the crucible of Binghamton, but then my systems thinking came together with this study. And this was another dimension by which the civil rights that we were already, it was right there in front of my face, the environmental injustice with regards to land use and land use of park policy, where the kids have access to recreation, how houses were being built on parkland, but only in the black community. We had to go to white communities where we thought we were getting better recreation, only to be treated, again, along the racial fault line as second class. Our kids were treated poorly. So these things start to come together, and you say, my God, the civil rights struggle is not just fighting for voting rights and not just fighting for jobs for blacks or fighting for this is literally totally systemic. And that epiphany really drove my writings, and it drove my organizing within Arbor Hill, but it moved me exclusively from the traditional civil rights approach that you see most blacks to this day still in that space of dealing with the racism at the social political level of community, but really getting into even land use, getting into monuments, getting into public spaces, getting into those things, like I said, that goes into the intellectual capital, things that build that environment that allows a kid to thrive and really become a healthy, productive human being. And that here, now I built a house up here on this hill, this plateau. I now had to do an analysis from that study of what's the impact on my community and my children.